The problem was I lived on a 33-acre farm in a rural area. My school was up the road. My church was about a half mile past that. I hung out with the girl behind our property. The few moves I did make across southern Ontario were still small town with populations under 10,000 people. It wasn't until I started acting and had to go into Toronto all the time that I learned to integrate with people who were not like me. A person's color really wouldn't freak me out. I was more uncomfortable around this one 45-year-old couple that were sitting at a restaurant that I went to. I never had to deal with that. You know, my world was my family, my friends, my teachers. The people in my church who were in their 40s and 50s were the stern ones, and they would discipline kids, and they'd give you dirty looks like you didn't behave. And I always felt like the people who were in their 40s and 50s always had more backwards views than the people who were even older, you know. But that was just the group that I was used to. That's kind of how I identified those people that were in my group in my small town. At least the elderly people would give candy, you know. This restaurant I was at with this 45-year-old couple, it was on Queen Street in Toronto, and if for any of you guys who know Queen Street, it's pretty busy. Lots of restaurants, little cafes and stuff in the summertime. And I was there waiting for an audition, and there were no seats, so this couple had offered me up one of the chairs from their table. But at the same time, there was this really creepy guy. And I mean creepy in a bad way. I don't mean like creepy like, oh, I'm not tolerant, I don't know that guy. Not good. Not good scenario. Offered me his stool beside him at the bar. And the woman at the table, she offered me her chair. And said to the guy, oh, she's sitting with us, so thanks for offering though. Well, it was awkward because then I was forced to sit with this 45-year-old couple. You know, I'm a young girl in Toronto. I don't have nothing in common with these 45-year-old people. And she seemed very concerned that I was walking around Toronto, and the two of them would ask some very friendly questions and just, you know, carry on a nice conversation or talk about Queen Street or something. But we ended up having a really good time, you know, and I nearly missed my audition because of it, but it was a game-changing moment for me having food and drinks with complete strangers, just complete strangers. And it seems like unsafe, but the whole restaurant was so packed and everything, you know, I could have just screamed or something, it would have been fine, but it turned out to be really good. After taking the Greyhound bus into Toronto a few times a week, I went from reading books to chatting with people beside me. I now have no problem talking to people at airports, airplanes, or subways. An airplane ride usually forces you to get to know somebody you normally wouldn't choose to have in your life. I see people do this online. They will reach out to people who are like them all the time. If you were looking for a date or for a partner, that would make sense that you would do that. If you're looking for a friend, you tend to find the same sex, same age group, whatever. And we even hang out with musicians who are like our type of music, and I talk a lot about like-minded spirits coming together in a community. But what if we made it our goal to get to know somebody in our day, or this week, or this month, who's absolutely nothing like us, or seemingly nothing like us? What if we set out to have a conversation with a stranger who seemingly has nothing in common? How would you interact? For me, what I tend to do, and don't take my long-winded blogs the wrong way, but I tend to listen more. If I meet somebody who I think I have nothing in common with them, instead of trying to bully the conversation, what I tend to do is just ask a lot of questions and then listen, so that maybe I can just get to know somebody who's nothing like me and see their views on life and see their opinions and all those sorts of things. You just never know who you'll meet and what you'll find out. I also think it makes us more tolerant, and certainly travel will do this. When I traveled from Canada down to Los Angeles, you know, it's a 3,000-mile trek, and from a small town. This is not like, I did go to Toronto a lot for auditions and stuff, but where I lived was always a small town, and then I moved to Los Angeles. Of course, now I'm longing for the country again, but I got my tolerance, we'll travel. But many of us stay in our small towns thinking the whole world is supposed to be like that because that's what we have lived. And I see this a lot with small towns. There's so much I love about small towns and so much I don't like. I was a hairdresser in a small town for a long time. A very busy salon, and I worked 60 plus hours a week doing cuts and perms and colors and all those sorts of things. And I got to know a lot of people in that small town, but they were all kind of like each other, you know, in a certain way. There was a lot of gossip, a lot of good people too, though. But there was a lot of good morals that I learned in these small towns. I learned about character and friendship and all those things. It's just I never learned about tolerance until I left. And, if you're living in a small town and you've never left, and you have what you consider a very healthy amount of tolerance, I'm not sure where you got it from. I felt like I was a tolerant person until I left. And for people that live in small towns that are maybe more tolerant, maybe they read more, maybe they watch more documentaries, maybe they communicate on the internet with people who are nothing like them already. It's very difficult to become tolerant of the world when you live in a small town. It's kind of tough. Although my grandmother, who never left her chair, was very tolerant of people. I wrote a blog a while back about there was an African guy had come through, and he didn't speak English, wasn't even from the country, and he just wanted a place to rest and just wanted something to eat. And my grandmother, who had never left the town, was very obliging and very loving and everything. So maybe some people are just born with tolerance, but majority of people, you kind of have to travel and get outside their small town. So I signed off. It shouldn't take a car crash or a disaster to open up our dining experience. I guess it all depends on our own agenda. And I said staying off the 101 at rush hour anyways. It's the major highway here in Los Angeles. Although it sits pretty dead at rush hour. I'm not sure. It's like dead stopped. I'm not sure you could get into much of an accident. A little fender bender maybe. And my Martin Luther King quote today was, "The time is always right to do what's right." Tolerance. It's quite a topic all on its own. I could probably talk for an hour just about the topic of tolerance. It's not that things are wrong, but that things are different. That's the thing about tolerance, is that learning that things around you are not necessarily right or wrong. They're just different than what you're used to. And I think the problem is that we have a problem differentiating. We don't know what the difference is between wrong and different. And that's a tough one. That's a really tough one. It takes sometimes years, and people who are extraordinarily tolerant might have taken them decades to become that way. It's not something people are necessarily just born with. So we sort of mashed the two of them based on our own experience. It kind of reminds me of the country mouse, the city mouse, and just the experiences you can have when you just leave your small town. So anyway, I went on a rant starting off with this good news story, but it's kind of cool that Dwayne and Bill became friends, 48 and 80 years old, and their wives became friends too. And that's pretty cool. It wasn't for that car crash, that might have never happened. So I guess our goal is, how do we make things like that happen more without having that car crash? That's the key. Anyway, so I've rambled on long enough today. I will talk to you guys again tomorrow, and until next time, rock on.